been said that high expectations are the key to everything. And it's true that you want to have a reasonably high expectation for the things that you're doing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any standards. But what I've noticed is that people who have really high expectations, people who are really ego driven, people who are really determined to be successful, people who feel like it's never really enough, they don't meet a good end. What happens with them is that eventually they do get to the end of their lives. Because you can't ride a high forever if you think that everything is all about yourself. It's about your career, it's about your progression, it's about what you are doing, it's about what other people are doing for you. It's that continual treadmill of complaining about how the world isn't good enough. In a sense, it's a desire to play God. It's an obsession with being in control. And then eventually, you're not going to be in control because you're going to die. And even if we have long and successful lives, we still eventually get to the point where it's over. It's the end. It's the downhill run. And then we face our mortality and we realize that we're not going to be around forever. I was thinking about this guy, and he was really aggressive, and he had this reputation of being a real, a piranha, if you will. He was really out there to make a point and to prove himself and to be in control of the people that he managed. And he was really just this badass kind of a guy, right? But then what happens? You go your way and you forget about this guy, and then you find out what happened to him years down the road, and you find him, and he's a shell of what he used to be, because a few years pass, and then his wife leaves him, he gets cancer, and then that rough, tough guy that had it all together and was feared and was so determined to be successful and determined to be respected, always on the treadmill, far surpassing other people. Well, now he's just a small creature without any defenses, without any reason for anyone to really care one way or another. And he has to come to terms with that. Now this can happen to any of us, and you can avoid some misfortune in life just by don't do drugs, and maybe don't smoke and don't drink and don't do things that put yourself in harm's way or at risk for health problems or something like that. We can certainly make our lives better by living and making good decisions. But in one way or another, we all have a time limit. We all have a point of expiration. We all have this place where we have to come to terms with the fact that we're not going to be around forever. And I really think that you can be okay when you get to that place if you understand that the world doesn't need to revolve around you. You don't need to win. You don't need to be the best at everything. You don't need other people to do what you want them to do. You don't need to play God and have this sense of being absolutely in control of everything. If you understand that, then it's not really a big deal when you face the reality that your life isn't going to last forever. That's kind of preaching to the choir. It's something you've already come to an understanding of. And yes, maybe sometimes there's things that we don't exactly like about being human, kind of like if you were sick, you wouldn't enjoy being sick. And yet, studies have proven that people who feel like they are loved are much more likely to report less physical pain in the face of physical ailments than those who feel lonely or bitter about life. It's a lot easier to bear the inevitable pain of life if you feel like life is fundamentally good. And that doesn't mean that you don't experience pain, because sometimes you just do. If you accidentally cut your hand a bit, then you're going to experience pain. But if you're in a really good mood because life is going really well for you overall, then maybe it's a lot less of a pain in an emotional sense. You go get the Band-Aid and you patch yourself up and you move on with your day. But if you're already having a terribly frustrating day and you're angry about everything anyway, and then you get the paper cut, or you get the little thing that is an irritant, well then it's so much worse, right? And that's how it is though with our mortality and the experiences that we go through as we age and as we move forward through life. But there's so many people who have this sense that they have to always be in control of everything. They want to be in control of their life. They want to be in control of other people's lives. They just really have a God complex, and they think that that's kind of what gives their life constructive meaning. It's raging against whatever the current political thing is. It's being mad about something going on social media. It's criticizing, what happened in a ball game. It's being mad about what a balance change has happened in an update for an MMO. It takes a lot of different forms. It's just all kinds of anger and obsession with being in control and frustration when things either don't seem to be in control or they aren't going one's way. You gotta let go of that stuff. And if something is in your control, then of course you can always do your part to craft it into what you want it to be. I'm not saying that. But if you're just thinking that your life needs to be a certain way in order for it to be good, or you're thinking that you need to progress to a certain level to be all right or to be successful, if you feel like you need other people to agree with you or to serve you or to do what you want so that you can have a sense of progression or accomplishment, or so that you can pat yourself on the back and say that you're a good leader or whatever it might be, when you judge the world on a basis of being stronger than other people, the truth is there will come a time when you aren't stronger than other people. And that's going to be really, really disappointing to you if you um, have not come to terms with your own mortality and learn to be okay with not being in control of everything. I think that's important to come to terms with that, because we live in a society that's always being, kind of grading people on a basis of their achievements. And if you're more powerful than someone, then you're going to be, you're going to have that last laugh, if you will. But in the end, it's the Grim Reaper gets the last laugh. And there's all of these people running back and forth saying, oh my goodness, people need to do what I want them to do, and how dare they not do what I want them to do. And I need to, I need to win. I need a little bit bigger number in my bank account, or I need a little bit bigger salary, or I need a little bit more authority. And you know what? Nobody cares. Because I guarantee if you could trade with Warren Buffett today and have all of his money and all of his power and potential influence, and he could have your youth if you are reasonably young, toward the middle or the earlier part of your life, well, a few years of youth would be worth far more than all of the billions of dollars that that man can muster. So when you put it into those terms, why? And I think it's important to realize that some of the things that people freak out about, the things that people prioritize, that they don't really matter. If you don't realize that, then you fall into the trap of thinking that this stuff is important because you see people and they're all acting like these things are important. Whatever it is, their jobs, their status, their position, their point of view on something. People have this obsession, this self-centered desire to make everything about them. And we can fall into the trap of thinking because everyone is that way, then that's kind of, I guess that's the operating system that we're supposed to be using for our lives. But it's not. And you can be surrounded by people who are wrong, and you can feel like you're the one who's wrong. Because after all, if everyone is focused on themselves, if everyone is chasing a progression path, if everyone is sucked up into the firestorm of the latest gimmick in politics or social media influence, then if you aren't, you might be a bit of an outcast because, it's been said, the Bible says that, broad is the way that leads to destruction. And regardless of one's religious views, that's kind of true. That if you want to do the right thing for yourself, you're probably going to have to go the other way. You're probably going to have to understand that doing what everyone else is doing and thinking the way everyone else is thinking is not going to give you the best results. You're much better to learn to have peace with your life, to learn the virtue of simplicity, and to not feel like you have to have such a firm grasp on every aspect of living. And then just learn to be simply satisfied with life as it is. And no, you're not going to climb the leaderboards. Exactly. Though sometimes when you do find peace in life, it does help you get financial success or other forms of merit. That's true. But you will have something that other people don't have. You'll have a peace of mind. And I think in the world, peace of mind is perhaps a rather rare commodity because everyone thinks that their sense of purpose comes from something external, or they think that it comes from, some sort of faith, like a pie in the sky, religious sort of faith. There's not a lot of people who just can simply be without expecting it to be anything more than what it is, to just accept life as it is and to see good in that experience without trying to make it more or less than what it is. But if you can do that, that's, I'm not going to say that is wisdom, but I do think it is the beginning of wisdom. It was Judge Learned Hand who said that the spirit of liberty is the spirit that is not too certain that it is right. And I really love that because we live in a time, we perhaps always have lived in a time where human beings have a desire to be right all the time. And it's a rare and uncommon thing to not have to be right, to just not need to prove yourself to others. Because nature doesn't need to prove itself, right? It just is. The trees are there. You don't have a tree prove to you that it's a tree just because, it is a tree, right? If you don't believe it's a tree, then that's fine. It doesn't hurt the tree any for you to not believe in it. So truth is self-evident. It doesn't need an advocate, really. You can believe things or you can not believe them, but the truth remains the truth. And the truth of our lives is that they're temporary. And in a quantum mechanics sort of a way, maybe the answer is that time isn't what we think it is, or reality isn't what we imagine it to be, or any number of things like that. But the truth is that as far as our way of calculating reality goes, time is something that we cannot be the masters of. We will live and we will die, and if there is any lesson to be learned, it's that we have to accept the truth exactly as it is, and that truth points to the fact that the universe doesn't revolve around us, and we don't have to win in order to have value in our lives, and we don't have to, do anything in order to, have a sense of meaning, because in the end, we're all on the level anyway when we die. There's a story, I believe it's a Russian story, and the story goes that there's a man, and he found out that he could have as much land as he wanted if he could just walk all the way around it in one day. And he had to go out on a circle, and he had to go full circle all the way around and then get back to where he started. And once he closed the circle, then he could have all the land that he was able to walk around in one day before the sun went down. And he thought that seemed like a really, really great idea, great deal. So he set off to walk in a big circle. And then it started to get late into the day, and he realized he was running out of time. So he gave it everything he could possibly give, and he rushed and he rushed and he rushed to close that loop, to close the circle, so he could claim this land. And, the question was, how much is enough? And, well, he rushed and he gave it all he had, and he got all the way back to the starting point just at sunset, just as the sun went down. He finished, he got there. But as he closed the circle and he got back to the place where he needed to be, he died of overexertion at that moment. So his heart gave out, and he perished there. And in closing, the owner of the land buried him in a 6-foot hole. And the moral of the story was, he thought that he needed so much. It was not enough. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. Until he got to the end, and that turns out all he needed was that 6-foot plot where his body was laid to rest. And that's kind of how it is in our lives. So many people rush trying to get more, trying to get more. They're never about the experience. They're always trying to be in control. And then in the end, there's that saying, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world, but he loses his soul? And what is our soul? But that ability to have a sense of joy in our lives, to be satisfied with the experience of our lives. And we lose that when we're so busy pursuing a higher number, pursuing a better status, that we never actually learn how to value the experience and the journey along the way. So don't have such a tight hold on life. Let it go enough that you can enjoy the experience. Not down the road, not in an abstract way eventually if things go your way, but just right now, every day. Because life is too short for bad days. Thank you very much for watching.